Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Since 1974, Cadillac Fairview has been creating landmark retail and commercial real estate around the world. In the face of the pandemic and changing social times, how is this influential commercial real estate company weaving the retail landscape into its impact-driven strategy? On this episode of The Voice of Retail, my guest is retail veteran Inge Vice President of Strategic Planning and Risk at Cadillac Fairview. We talk about the increasing importance of fostering wholly rounded communities, from social connectivity to environmental sustainability. Inge outlines Cadillac Fairview's role in delivering a brighter future and details the company's new goals that center community, people, and the planet. We discuss the evolution of dynamic retail spaces in the face of challenging times and how Cadillac Fairview is keeping up with that great acceleration.
It's a decades-long impact. I mean, our, Toronto Dominion Centre, it's over 50 years. Like, these are permanent, landmarks. And so, yes, always focused on emissions reduction and energy usage reduction, waste diversion.
Let's listen in now. Inge, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, Michael. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's been a great adventure between me and you changing our schedules to get you on. I'm thrilled we're together at the same place at the same time. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Of course, CF Cadillac Fairview would be a name that my listeners would know well, but I'm pretty sure they don't know as much as they think they know, or there's lots more to tell. And so that's why I'm really excited to have a conversation. So why don't we jump right in? Let's start with telling us a bit about yourself, your background, and your role at Cadillac Fairview.
Certainly, happy to. So prior to Cadillac Fairview, I actually had quite a stint within retail, was at Loblaw for 8 years in various positions, and then also management consulting for over a decade, mainly working with retailers. And then after Loblaw, I came here to Cadillac Fairview, where I've been for a little over 7 years. And so switching a little from retail, but also still leveraging that. And I run a team called Strategic Insights and Risk. And really what we do is we support our executive and management team in conducting research, tailored analyses, and evaluating impacts to help Cadillac Fairview both define and execute its strategic plan. So that's inclusive of monitoring for enterprise risks. And also I help to facilitate CF's corporate responsibility strategy.
Did you, I moved from the vendor side, I was at Black & Decker, into the retail side. I went to Hudson's Bay at one point and then stayed in retail. So I've been in retail. I found that when I moved to the retail side, I brought with me some insights that I shared with my retailers about what it's like to be in the shoes of the vendor. Have you found similar, like with so many years spent, whether it's consulting, but certainly in retail, when you come over to the CF side, is it give you a broader context for understanding and planning and helping the team understand both sides of how the ecosystem works?
It certainly does, because there is very much that required partnership between what I'll say CF's traditional landlord role used to be, however, now much more of a partner with its retailers. And in actuality, what's been helpful is knowing the dynamics of the detailed retail business, and then also all of the varying aspects that impact a commercial real estate company. I think it does help, and I think it's certainly that way that we're really kind of partnering closer together with a lot of our retailers.
All right, let's talk about Cadillac Fairview. So as I said off the top, for this audience, a name that they would certainly know, and for millions and millions, tens of millions of Canadians who walk through your properties one time, one way, shape, or another. But I often find that we don't know as much as we think we know about the organization. So tell us a bit about the origin story, the full scope and scale, and spend a few minutes on CF for us.
Yeah, certainly. Happy to. Cadillac Fairview, as you said, I think a lot of people know that it is an owner, operator, investor, and developer of best-in-class retail. And we know many people about our Canadian aspect, but we're also globally focused. And not only across retail and office, but also residential, industrial, and mixed-use asset classes. We're wholly owned by Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, and CF manages in excess of 35 billion assets across the Americas, the United Kingdom, with future expansion planned for Europe and Asia. And regardless of what geography we're in, we're really all focused on creating vibrant destinations and cultivating those innovative spaces and experiences that help bring people together. Internationally, CF invests in communities with like-minded partners. So Stanhope in the UK, Lincoln Property Company in the US, Multiplan in Brazil. And, overall, and I think where a lot of people recognize us are 68 landmark properties across Canada, from the TD Centre and CF Toronto Eaton Centre out to the west coast of CF Pacific Centre, and also in Montreal and Calgary with CF Care for Laval, Tour de Lotte, and CF Chinook Centre.
I have a client in from Ireland, and we went on a retail tour last week, which is the first time I've been in some of the shopping centers. So we were in CF Eaton Centre, and it's funny to see. I'm so familiar with Eaton Centre, right? I work for Hudson's Bay, so I was attached to it for so many years, right down at Bay and Yonge. It's so interesting to see it in fresh eyes, like just, wow, what a place, and it's funny because you get a bit, you get a bit, I've grown up with it. So it's so interesting to see it being the CF Eaton Centre through someone else's eyes, and what a piece of real estate. And then as we're walking through Hudson's Bay, I said, yeah, it's all connected. So it's really, sometimes we forget how impressive the work that CF does and the properties that you own, as you call them, landmark properties, is really a great description.
Yeah, interestingly, one of my first jobs was actually in the same office building here at 20 Queen that's attached to the Eaton Centre, and having seen so many different retailers in here, but also now that it spans like 3 city blocks in downtown Toronto, it certainly does what I hope everyone considers makes a quite an impact on the community here.
Yeah, even just walking across the bridge, the new bridge, is just such a visual treat. Anyway, let's talk about this new purpose behind CF. I mean, it's, to say the least, it's not exactly we're going to optimize tenant mix kind of objective. It's very broad and very human. So talk about the evolution of this, this role of human connection and connectivity, and this new purpose behind CF. How did it come about, and describe it for us?
Our purpose, which is transforming communities for a vibrant tomorrow, was something that we embarked on over 4 or 5 years ago, and to define it. And it really has been a guiding light for all the years since then. And it is really about kind of affirming that our belief that, human connection is the core of individual and societal health and well-being. I mean, certainly with social detachment on the rise, and not only because of COVID-19, but really also due to the effects of, the political and cultural polarization and
social media.
Yeah, social media, those echo chambers, we're really, proud to create and cultivate those exceptional spaces and experiences that bring people together in inspired ways. And that's across retail, office, the residential that we're building around some of our centers. So we really think that, social connectivity is, the importance of it is never been greater. And so we really want to make sure that our purpose creates those spaces for people to freely flow with commerce and ideas. So, we're working on our properties or those go-to places for our communities to gather, be it shopping, dining, working. We're really trying to create memorable experiences for all our guests in those spaces.
Now, you've got such a great background in both retail and consulting. Was there a point at which the organization collectively said, we need a new vision, or was it an evolution of thought that was already happening? Like, what was that 4 years ago or 5 years ago? What was that point that started you and the team on this journey?
Yeah, I would say certainly it was an evolution, because as we are expanding internationally and into other types of asset classes, we first of all know the lasting impact of commercial real estate. When we develop a building, it is there to stay and last. And so we wanted to focus on creating those communities, but transforming it into tomorrow for a much better place in those long-lasting spaces. But what's also interesting is we certainly think about our communities internally as well with our people. It's not solely outward reaching, but it's really with all of our stakeholders, be it even the community with our partners, our clients, our service providers. It's very much that community definition is very broad reaching as well.
It feels like you needed a mission, so to speak, that would bear the weight of that responsibility. Because as you say, you don't build properties that are pop-ups. Well, you might have pop-ups, but these properties become part of a city, become part of culture, become part of many things, right? Was that foremost on your mind, or at least on your mind as you kind of crafted this mission, and then tell me about how you bring that to life as you reflect on what's in black letter and what's on paper.
Yeah. And certainly I think there are so many organizations now that need to have a purpose beyond delivering profits, right? It really is. It's a way to attract the best talent. It's the way to connect with all of the stakeholders and really is mutually beneficial. That's ultimately what will help Cadillac Fairview, our communities, our customers, our clients thrive, is when we're working on something that will benefit all stakeholders in how we operate. And so I think it really is that evolution and the way it comes to life is so different as the business environment continues to change. And be it, we can consider that vibrant tomorrow from an environmental perspective, also from a social perspective. And so that's really why we also have incorporated our responsibility strategy into our overall strategic plan, because we think that also helps us to deliver against our purpose of transforming communities for a vibrant tomorrow.
Well, let's talk about that. It's a good segue. The sustainability, the environmental footprint. You have a massive physical footprint. How does your thinking around the environment? And as you say, these were trends that were happening in the before time. Some have been accelerated by the COVID era, some created and some gone away. But as you reflect on your mission and this purpose, and how do you think about that from an environmental perspective? I mean, one small example, I love looking at the honeybee hives that often pop up. Because I just they're very calming as you kind of look at them. But it's a small thing, and I'm sure you do both small things and big things. So tell me about how these two things stitch together in your team.
No, certainly, and I'll have to get you a jar of that honey because it also tastes really great that we make. But Cadillac Fairview is one of the largest owners, operators, and developers of real estate in the country, and so, as I had mentioned, we really have that heritage of seeing growth and opportunity when we create those communities in the spaces that we operate in. And so really, we have to make sure that we have the appropriate sustainability principles that not only address and ensure environmental benefits, but that we deliver value to our clients, our shoppers, and the occupants of our buildings. So, certainly climate change, it continues to make headlines across the world. Devastating, costly effects, right? Be it extreme weather patterns, record-breaking temperatures, wildfires, flooding, and
there's no vaccine for that to get us out of trouble, like the way it is going to for COVID, right? I often say that is, we've just gone through. Hopefully, we're pretty close to the end, or what looks like the end of the COVID era, but we're nowhere near the end of climate change, which could have vastly farther more reaching. And it's I connected back to something you said earlier in the interview. If you think about just the Toronto property, it's massive, right? You occupy a lot of physical space, right?
Right. It's true. And So what we want to make sure of is that we're very much focused on the low carbon community transformation and making sure that we are not only reducing our carbon impact, ensuring that we are reducing waste, making efficiency of the resources that we have to use to run those large properties, but we also are making sure that we're building resilience to, those extreme weather events and climate change. I mean, we were the first Canadian real estate company to establish a national sustainability operations program back in 2008 called Green at Work that has targets for our various uses of resources and focused on waste reduction. So that's been a long-standing tradition that Cadillac Fairview has.
Yeah, you're definitely an early mover in that space. From my recollection, it's pretty interesting. And I guess with your role, that second part of your description, risk. I mean, it must be foremost on the list of all the various risks is environmental risk, right? I mean, and I'm sure you think in your team decades. You don't think next year. We're going to talk about next year, but you think far, far out because again, the decisions that the organization makes have far-reaching implications, right?
Absolutely correct. And as we said, it's a decades-long impact. I mean, our Toronto Dominion Center, it's over 50 years. Like these are permanent, landmarks. And so, yes, always focused on emissions reduction and energy usage reduction, waste diversion. These are all things that every company needs to focus on. And we often partner with many of our clients to do this because it's not ourselves. It's actually working with our office clients, et cetera, to achieve some of the successes that we've been able to.
It's interesting because I know that oftentimes cooling your buildings, the office buildings, are more expensive than heating them, which is kind of counterintuitive until you start thinking about it. And projects like bringing in cold water from under Lake Ontario, very innovative, right? Very innovative projects into downtown.
Correct. Thank you. It's a partnership that we have, exactly as you said, taking cool water from Lake Ontario through N-Wave Energy, and we use that deep lake water cooling technology to really fuel our downtown Toronto offices and CF Toronto Eaton Centre. And so that has helped significantly and quite an innovative approach as we've had that for a few years now.
No, I didn't realize it reached up to, in some way, shape, or form, CF Eaton Centre. Talk about that for a bit. I knew the cooling part, but tell me how that factors in.
So if you were to come on a tour with us, you would see in the loading bank areas, et cetera, you will see the pipes where that water comes through, and actually quite a few empty certain boiler rooms, et cetera, because through all of the transition, we have continued to retrofit and make sure that we leverage that, the new innovations to really for our buildings to operate much more efficiently, both from cost, but also in sustaining the environment.
Yeah, living the mission. Listen, I can't have you on the mic without talking about your thoughts and the organization's thoughts about this COVID era. And foremost, my community, the retailer community, I guess all of us, we're trying to figure out what consumer behaviors and what strategies were an adjustment to a most unusual time versus some of the things that might stick around post-COVID. I mean, for example, we know there is a great acceleration for e-commerce. It's kind of ebbing off now, back to normal growth, so to speak. Anything top of mind for you that, as you think about your property, your stakeholders from your perspective, that you say, you know what, I think this happened, but it's probably going to go away because it was so weird. But other things might stick around. How do you even begin to think about that in a 4-part matrix as a consultant? This is important, and this has impact. Box on the matrix.
No, it's true. I mean, even before the pandemic, but certainly throughout and continuing now, we always assess kind of what are the impacts to, I think what all of the listeners would hear is an ever-changing retail landscape, right?
Yeah,
I mean, certainly e-commerce existed before.
Yep.
But what we always want to make sure is that we make sure that our customers and our clients are our top priority. And we always want to make sure that we have heightened, differentiated in-mall experiences, yes, with the best-in-class mix, but also what we did notice through the pandemic, understandably, is, doors were temporarily closed and shoppers and workers and the public stayed away. Yes, we had lower traffic levels versus the pre-COVID times. And certainly, from an environmental standpoint, that meant we had lower usage of electricity, water, et cetera. But that continued still our sustainability efforts. But what we also did during that time is it actually did really speed up some of the integration of the digital tools that we had at our retail centers. So offering things like a CF guest list, which is a line management tool. And when people came back, also the, Live by CF, it's an app that allows shoppers to pre-shop and navigate our centers. We have a partnership with a company called Return Bear that helps facilitate e-commerce returns within our shopping centers. Now that's at CF Toronto Eaton Centre and CF Fairview Mall right now. So we certainly always wanted to ensure that we have alternatives for customers to make the shopping experience easier, but we really focused on the safety and security in our centers and did that by making sure that capacity levels were as is mandated, all of the health and safety standards of cleaning and mask wearing, et cetera, and supporting our retailers and our clients by having people at the doors, ensuring that we have, the right processes in place to ensure that everyone has a safe experience, but then also really trying to have people enjoy those experiences. Because even now, as stores have reopened, we've certainly seeing people are coming back much more purpose driven. A lot of, it's resulting in higher level of sales per trip. And really everyone wants to come back and enjoy those experiences. And so we certainly are focused on, with the right level of safety and security, having those elevated levels of service that'll welcome people back into our centers. So we've created a lot of welcome back excitement programs, and yes, some of them being some gift card promotions, et cetera, but really some largest patios at Sherway that allowed people to come back and eat safely, and working with our retailers now. Because I know that they've been impacted, by finding it challenging for, getting staffing in their stores. So we're creating job fairs at some of our centers to help them with that, all while socially distanced appropriately, so that applicants and retailers can, get that support from us, so that they can, resume more of their regular operations as well.
Yeah, finding people. I was hosting a Retail Council of Canada conference yesterday, and the president of Berks was on, and he was talking about both the opportunities and the challenges, and as you said, finding people for him, because he needs talented salespeople at his kiosks, and one of his biggest limitations wasn't supply in his world. It was a little bit, but it was finding people, and you'd never seen it the way it is. So there's no shortage of challenges and opportunities and all these kind of things going on all at the same time. What's the future? Talk about how you're thinking about the future. I mean, basically we've had a big future conversation, but where your role, your team, what are you focused on next? As if this isn't all enough, but as if there hasn't been enough change. Point me a little bit to the future.
Yeah. So what we're very excited about is, in the past year, we did revisit and redefined our responsibility strategy with 4 core pillars. So certainly focus, as we talked a lot about, our planet and our communities, but also our people and our partners. And what we realized is that focusing on corporate responsibility can't be a separate initiative. It has to be just the way that Cadillac Fairview conducts its business. And so it's embedded into our strategic plan. We have leaders, business leaders from across the organization responsible for it. And, not only does Cadillac Fairview continue to revisit and appropriately adjust its strategic plan, but inherent in that is also revisiting the business environment, the impacts to make sure that we're focused on the right responsibility aspects. And what we're excited about, we had not necessarily done this in the past across all of those 4 areas, but we're working on defining our targets, both near term and long term, and working collaboratively to really achieve those. So some of them are certainly going to be quite the stretch targets. So we're going to share those next year. We're just refining them now. So we're quite excited that we're really sharing more externally and broadly with our stakeholders what we're focused on. And there's certainly, Michael, a myriad of opportunities that we can address.
Well, it's a great way to leave off today, because I think there's so much we had to get done during the COVID era to, as you say, keep our people safe, keep customers safe. And, innovation is coming. In other words, the time for keeping the businesses going and making sure everyone's safe is starting to wane. And now that real innovation can just burst out thanks to those 18 months of trying to figure out what's changed. Inge, thanks for joining me on the podcast. It's been a real treat. Last question is, where can people go to learn more? Is there more around the details of the role of human connection and the new purpose? Can they go read a little bit more on it somewhere?
Absolutely. And Michael, it's been my pleasure. And so anyone that wants to learn more about Cadillac Fairview in general, but also our latest responsibility report, should visit CadillacFairview.com, and you will see access there to all of those recent news articles about new accomplishments and also our responsibility report.
Very good. Well, Inge, thanks again for joining me on The Voice of Retail. It's a real treat to meet you and chat about such an important element of the retail ecosystem. I wish you continued success and look forward to your continuing and ongoing reports and all the great work you're doing. So thanks again.
Oh, likewise, Michael. It was my pleasure to share some perspectives today, a little bit of information on Cadillac Fairview, and looking forward to connecting again.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts, so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating review, as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of Emmy LeBlanc Company, Inc., and if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at emmyleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe, have a great week.